Wow, 50 years. Welcome to our celebration. I'm Brad Bilski. I'm the current Dean and Chief Administrative Officer at Kent State Tuscarawas. Now in my 5th year of service here at the campus. I want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of the tradition that we have here. Your support has led to wonderful accomplishments since we began in 1968 in Founders Hall.
Each of the sources seems to identify it a little differently. John Hayes suggests that as early as 1912 there was, I don't know specifically Tuscarawas County, but there was a desire to have a half dozen regional campuses sprinkled around. And in fact, before Kent State, the Kent campus was open, they were having classes at Trumbull and I think the one that isn't ours anymore over outside of Akron, whatever that is. And then I don't know that it was mentioned much again. Then by about 1930, there was a Stark campus. And I think about that same time, extension classes were being offered here. I think came from Kent through the Stark campus kind of to here. But I think you could work on, long distance work on a Master's of Arts in Teaching or something like that. We didn't have any, giant, before the nursing program and things like that, but whatever Kent, was willing to do or there was a need for. So then the Stark campus went under in 1950, the first Stark campus, because of financial woes or whatever. And then it's all kind of, meanwhile, you've got Molly Doughton and Mary Scott Hanhart and so on.
It started with AAUW, that's the American Association of University of Women, that had a chapter here. And a lot of us from out of the area, and a lot of us wanted to live in a town where there was a college. So we started talking about it and thought, well, maybe we could get a branch down here. There were a lot of other places, and so we tried, and we thought of Muskingum, and then we thought, well, it'd be better to have a state. So we thought, well, let's try and get Kent. So one of the gals was married to somebody in Chamber of Commerce and mentioned it to them. And they said, well, actually, Walter Ritter had approached them that he was interested in this, and so they would be happy to join us. So I was appointed the representative from the AAUW to be on this committee, and with Walter and with Leon Force, who is the superintendent of Philly schools, because he said they'd be willing to have their night classes there, which is where they all start.
My great-grandfather is Walter Ritter, and Walter Ritter was a member of the Academic Resources Board, which was the beginnings of the Kent State Tuscarawas campus.
Mr. Walter Ritter was considered the father of the dream, although there were many, many leading people in our community that were pushing for college classes. Now, Kent offered a college class now and then, clear back in the 20s. They would bring a class down to a high school building and offer it, and then it would disappear around. So this became the beginning of the real work that is here now. But a lot, there were many leaders who got involved, but Mr. Ritter was still considered the father of the dream.
I think he would be shocked. The campus has changed so much since I was even here, that it has evolved into what I would put up at the top of the list of assets in Tuscarawas County. I'm not sure he envisioned that, but that's certainly what it has turned into, and I think he would have to not only be shocked, but be very satisfied to see what has come about from those original plans.
We all got together and talked about it, then we went up to Kent and talked to, I don't know who we talked to there, somebody or other, and they said they would be interested. And so that fall, they started sending faculty down to teach at a night school. And it became very popular, much more so than they expected.
I was working a full-time job as a traffic manager at a little manufacturing company. And in May of 1962, I turned in my resignation and they hired somebody else. And when I went to tell my father, he said, "What'd you do that for? We need you to put your brother John through college." And it's like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. And so Jack, my husband, began to look at the newspapers. He said, "Here is the job for you." And he told me what it was, and it's like, oh, I can't do that. And so I called and made an appointment for a job interview. And as I walked up the sidewalk on 4th Street into the New Philly High School building, my heart said, "This is your job." And so I went through the interview process, and of course hired. Started August 1st of 1962. First 2 weeks I drove to Canton to the Stark campus for training, and then came back and began to put all my training into practice. Lots of it, because we were looking for students that fall. We did end up registering over 200 students.
I was one of the first people to go at night school because I had my master's degree in social work, and there wasn't opportunity in those days for social work down here. So I decided to go into education, which took a lot of the same things, but I had to have some special education courses. And I also had to have a history course, which I hadn't had, so I took it, one of the first ones to take it.
I graduated from Strasburg High School in 1962, probably I'm thinking in May or June. You know, 56 years ago, it gets a little hazy. And then I started at Kent, Tuscarawas in the fall of 1962.
I heard starting the Kent branch, so I zapped right over there and I signed up. And I think if I wasn't the first, I was probably the first 4 or 5 that signed up for there. And it was at New Philly High School. It was kind of what I expected. It was the professors were better than I thought.
When we were in the high school building, Earl Olmsted was with the Kiwanis Club, and he talked the Kiwanis Club into having a bookstore every night for students. I mean, and they had shelving built that when rollers, big ones that opened out, and then when it was done, locked up, and they could padlock it. I was trying to remember the other day where they stored them, but I don't remember in the high school building. Because they would, every night there would be a Kiwanis leader there to open that store for students if they needed other books, and they tried to keep books that the bookstore at Kent would recommend that they have.
The confusion quickly switched around and became very organized, even in a small building like that. And you knew that someday it's going to be a university. Never anything quite could have ever imagined that it would be like this.
After school, after the classes, a group of students would go over to Nanafos for pizza and beer. Back then, 18-year-olds were allowed to drink 3-2 beer. They gave me affordable opportunity for education. The opportunity to learn. I guess I didn't appreciate it as much back then as I do now.
The professors there that they sent down from Kent, I thought were very good, very fair, very good. I think I signed up for, I don't remember, it was a science course, and I did well in that. But I've had enough credits at the end of that year to transfer up as a junior on campus.
They had, more classes and more professors that were coming down. So they started talking about, wouldn't it be nice if we had our own campus down here? So of course, how are we going to do that? Money and so on. But we thought, well, let's try. So we formed the Speakers Bureau, and I was the chairman of it.
And then, as you might expect, there was a desire to branch out from meeting under the roof of the high school and whatever limitations that would have, to get their own home and have their own campus. And that formed the beginning of the Kent State Tuscarawas campus in the late 1960s.
We went all around various places in the county to try to promote having a campus here. And we went to Granges, and we went to all women's clubs and men's clubs and any kind of organization we ever heard of. The various people went. They had an education committee of the chamber, and they were all took active participation in it. And the AUW women did it. A lot of them were pretty remote, but they were the ones that were most enthusiastic. It really surprised us. We didn't expect that. And the people in town were receptive too. We really didn't have much of a negative flow from it. So of course at all of them we pointed out that we'd have to have money. And we weren't sure at that particular time. Kent wasn't real interested in having a campus that they would have to pay for down here. They hadn't really started their whole drive for that yet.
But community leaders saw that we needed more than that, and so they began to come together, and they had Attorney Muriel Corsi review the Ohio Branch District law. He thoroughly investigated that, brought it back to the advisory committee, and they decided that's the way they wanted to go, because then the campus would be locally owned and operated, which today is the only one in the state of Ohio.
We're very fortunate that those early founders took the route that they did, rather than just, tell Kent State, yes, we want to be part of you, rather than going with 3355, which is a very powerful set of statutes. And I think it has been very fortunate for this community to have the early people go that route.
And so they put a levy on, and the levy was supported overwhelmingly. And to this day, students who live outside of Tuscarawas County, most people don't know, each student pays $1 extra every time they register for classes to pay their share of building this campus.
And so we raised the money. We had the money ready to pay for the building before they built it. That's absolutely amazing.
I used to put a hard hat on with my tablet in my hand and walk through the building, the original building, with Dr. Hazard, and he would say, in this room we need to order, ta-da, in this room we need to order, in this room, so I would keep track of it, and then I would go back to the office at the high school, and I had a Rolodex with every room number on it, and then I would transpose what I had written onto the card, so that when it came time to order all the furniture and all the stuff that belonged in every building and every room of the building, it would be ordered and be there when it was needed around. And when we were moving finally in July of '68, moving the books. We had one room in the basement of the New Philadelphia Public Library, Tuscarawas County Public Library, that was dedicated to the Tuscarawas campus. We had books. That's where students could go study. It's where they could get what they needed to support what they were doing. And that summer when we moved that, my brother had an big old boat of a Buick. They took the back seat out of it, and he and Tom Gallagher and Richard Kozlowski decided to help move those books down here. And they took the back seat out of the big old Buick so they could get more books in them and move faster. In the meantime, the garbage truck came by, and the back seat went with the garbage truck. So when they got done hauling books, they had to go to follow the garbage guy and get the seat back. But that was just a little amusing thing that happened while we were moving books. But we got them all here, Mrs. Hines got them all shelved, and we were ready to go when classes started in the fall of '68.
The campus had just opened up, so decided to come with a couple of my buddies from high school and be students here. The student union was actually downstairs. I really don't remember how many students. Maybe that'd be a wild guess. I'm just thinking maybe 500. I'm not sure. Actually played on the first golf team they ever had here. I think the coach's name was Al Capuano. So that's kind of how I got my start here. Did okay the first semester, and then the second semester I played a lot of golf and didn't study much. That didn't go well.
The four of us chose the first board, and I was supposed to be on it, but I had been recently appointed to a community college board for the state. And since I was still teaching school and I still had a family, I figured I really shouldn't do both. And Mary Hanhart was particularly interested. She did a lot of the work and was very helpful. So I suggested that they put Mary in my place. And so I wasn't really involved again until after I retired. And then I got on the foundation board.
This is actually the golf jacket that we got when we played. It was a spring sport back then. And I actually hung on to it. My son kept it for me in his sports room, and so I borrowed it from him. So I thought it was kind of cool. It's 50 years old now, and I can still wear it.
I had never heard of Tuscarawas County nor Dover. I had heard of New Philadelphia once in my life in the movie The Old-Fashioned Way, where W.C. Fields runs a low-rent circus, and he's in Bellefontaine, Ohio, on the run from the sheriff in New Philadelphia. Only time I had ever heard the name. And I got to Kent by essentially flipping a coin between Fullerton State in California and Kent, but I happened to be in Kent when I flipped the coin, so they kind of asked for an answer fairly quickly. And I had a friend from South Dakota and Wisconsin, Wayne Quam, who's still at Kent actually, and he tried to talk me into a place. He said, Kent, the kids just fine. He says, nothing much ever happens here. All the kids go home every weekend and so on. That was 1969. Things changed very quickly. May 4th, 1970 remains the worst day of my life, but when it became clear after about 3 years that I was probably not going to get tenure at the Kent campus, my first thought was to buy a bar in Kent. I kind of liked it up there. And then two of the influential members of the department, who happen to be friends, said, well, just go to regional campuses. They're going to start to grow. And I did have a job offer from the U.S. Armed Forces to teach in Europe, but they wouldn't let me take my cat. And I liked my cat.
The first time that I walked into this building, and we're in Founders Hall now, I don't know that it was called Founders Hall then until we started to add other buildings, was 48 years ago. 48 years ago, but I walked into this building as a student. I had just been discharged, honorably discharged from the U.S. Air Force. I had been in Alaska for 3 years and finished up my 4 years in Cheyenne, Wyoming at F.E. Warren Air Force Base. And my wife had taught in this area as they had at that time a cadet certificate for young teachers, and she taught at Bowerston. She was recruited. And then later, after we had met and were married, my late wife Carolyn, I said, well, where do you want to live when we get out of the Air Force? And she says, well, there's this place up around New Philadelphia, Ohio. Well, you know, I want to keep going to college. Do they have a university or something there, or a branch? You know, that's a bad word, but branch. And she said, I think they do, because we had friends here.
I graduated from New Philadelphia High School in 1970. I started then at Kent State Branch in the fall of 1970. And I was a student there really through the winter of 1973. Then I went from Kent State Tuscarawas campus to Ohio State University. I got an education degree. Taught school at Ridgewood for 35 years, and currently I'm in ministry serving 2 Methodist churches in Coshocton County here.
My first impression was, holy cow, when I walked in and my freshman English classes had 31 students in them, which was about twice as many as I had before in freshman comp class. But otherwise, the students everybody was sort of amazed that there was a college here and, you know, that they could go. And of course, everyone called it the branch. But since the official name was the Tuscarawas County Branch District, that was, I guess, legitimized.
We had a lot of fun. A lot of folks came to campus and, you know, took their classes and then went back home. Some of them were having jobs, things like that. And so there wasn't a lot of social activity going on. And so we did actually, there was probably about a dozen of us guys, and we got together and called ourselves a fraternity. We were more of a social group, but we called ourselves a fraternity, and we started to you know, have social events and some things like that, and they proved to be pretty successful. So there was life going on there, and it was a fun place to be at. It really truly was.
Student life was fantastic. Student life was, I'd say it was better than it was at Kent. Probably better than most of the other places I'd been, maybe because it was smaller, more united, but we had beer on draft in the student center, because it's still an 18-year-old drinking law. Everybody kind of ate lunch in the basement of this building, and some people even had a beer with lunch. And there was a dance, if not every Friday night, at least about every other Friday night, often costume dances. I know I went to, I ruined my old collectible German helmet by going as Darth Vader.
So then you probably want to know about the winter of '73, all right? But it was homecoming, and this would have been my 3rd homecoming at Kent State University Tuscarawas campus. And up until that time, it had seemed somewhat uneventful. I'm sure it was important to the people that were involved in it and so on. I don't want to minimize it in any way, shape, or form. But by that time, we were down in the lounge with some buddies of mine, and we decided, well, let's go up to the lobby and let's see who they're nominating for Homecoming Queen. So we wandered up there, and I picked up a ballot, and I was reading the ballot, and it said that all candidates had to have a 2.0 average. And so I made the statement that I had a 2.0 average, and maybe I ought to run for Homecoming Queen. And some of my buddies said, well, you run, I'll vote for you. And I said, well, you vote for me and I'll run. So in essence, that was how it all got started. And of course, word spread very, very quickly that I was going to run for Homecoming Queen and so on, and it kind of took off a little bit like a flood. Of course, a lot of people placed a lot of significance on this, as though I was making a statement against the current women's liberation movements and things like that was going on, and it was really none of that. It was just I had opened up my big mouth and made a statement, and the guys around me kind of took off from there. But nonetheless, what did happen is it did stir things up a little bit, and people seemed to have an opinion on it and so on. And so as it progressed and as I was getting more and more attention on it, I finally told the school administrators and the folks that I would do everything but wear a dress. So it ended up I was in the top 5 when the counting was all taking place, and the initial balloting I was in the top 5, and the other 4 girls were very, very patient. I can still see their faces. I can't come up with all their names. A couple of them I might get close, but I wouldn't try. But nonetheless, they were good about it, but they were also having a hard time about it. And student council came to me at one point in time. Student council president was Craig Krieger, a former classmate of mine. And he came to me and he said, how about if we do this? How about if you win, we'll call you the king, and if one of the girls win, we'll call them a queen. And I paused for a second and I said, Craig, you know, it's a homecoming queen contest. This may be my only chance of being a queen. I said, let's just go with it, you know. And so nonetheless, that's how it progressed. As the week developed, there was some revolt, and some of the girls talked a little bit about, you know, not attending, and I don't know if it was actually the girls so much as maybe their boyfriends or whoever. I don't really know, but nonetheless, they finally decided that, you know, they would go through it as well, and as long as they knew ahead of time who won. So as far as I know, they knew who won the night of the basketball, or the night of the halftime at the basketball game. And of course, my current wife was my escort at the time, and my parents were there. My dad didn't have a whole lot to say about it, but mom was kind of cute, you know, and she thought we'd never had a homecoming queen in the family, and she thought that was kind of clever. But nonetheless, the gym was pretty well packed. The athletic director had caught me and wanted to know if I was going to go through with this, and I told him I would, and he said, well, we're going to have a big crowd that night. And we did have a big crowd that night, and I was crowned the homecoming queen, and I got my roses and my crown and all that. And probably the best time, I remember we played East Liverpool, and the athletic director at East Liverpool had brought the cheerleaders up to the ball game, and so they had the after game party, or the after homecoming party afterwards, and dance and all that kind of stuff. And he decided to stick around with the East Liverpool cheerleaders, and of course they wanted to dance with the queen. I was somewhat obligated, you know, and so I had a very good time. But as I learned later on, I didn't have my wife didn't have, my girlfriend at the time didn't have as much fun. So I got to hear about that. Okay, I got to reign over the dance, but then it reigned over my party afterwards. So that's pretty much the gist of it. It's not something I ever put on a resume, but it is something in my background.
I have had a total of 33 years. However, they were broken years. In 1973, after 13 years of full-time work, I felt a need to just lay back, you know, not do a lot. And of course, I got involved in a lot of volunteer stuff. And my hubby said, why don't you get a part-time job?
Can't remember all the details of who had the toilet and how we got it in and put it on top of the fountain. I just remember seeing it. I remember it being there, all right? The snowball fight was just it had snowed. We were showing up for class. There was this impromptu snowball fight that took place right at the front entrance of the campus. And of course, then it was just one building, you know, and right off of that, right off the front door was the entrance into the, what would he be? The director, Francis Hazard. It was his office. And of course, we got this snowball fight going, and so Mr. Hazard opens up the door to yell at us and tell us to take that someplace else. And I remember a snowball hitting him right in the chest of his black suit. And that kind of ended the snowball fight, of course, right away. But again, he took it in stride, and we did. We just had a lot of fun.
Favorite memory would be the lip sync competition. It was mostly students. And Sandy Jameson, who taught history, and my wife each wore complete Kent State Tuscarawas cheerleaders outfits. And I was just about the way I am right now. And we lip synced to Be True to Your School. And when we got to the last part, I ripped off my shirt. There was a big Kent State shirt underneath. And we won. So it's hard to top that one.
When we had that little social group, we called ourselves the Iota Phi Thetas, is who we were. We started having, and campus let us, of course back then they had 3-2 beer and that kind of stuff. You could drink at 18, but nonetheless we just started having parties in the student union on Thursdays. And we called them So Happy It's Thursday parties. And they were a huge success. And we had just a great turnout and a lot of fun. And then kind of the added fun was to see who showed up for class on Friday morning and, what kind of shape they were in, I guess. But it was a growing up period of time, and it was a good period of time. I really, really enjoyed it.
The student center was packed, especially at the noon hour. But even most of the day, there were euchre games going on all the time. And that's before we even had the video games. What changed, not for the better probably, but student life the most may have been the arrival of Space Invaders, the first of the video games. And then that meant that the game room was filled up with students and faculty.
There was a biology teacher by the name of Brooks, and I can remember one time they had a student-faculty basketball game, and I don't know how old Dr. Brooks would have been. I wasn't much of a basketball player, but that's why I got into wrestling. But I can remember I was dribbling the ball up, and here's Dr. Brooks, and he comes up to guard me, and the guy was definitely twice my age and beyond. And I said, "Look out, Brooksy, here I come." And he moved and stole the ball off of me and took it down the other way.
77, 78, I became involved with the advisory committee. It came about that in 79, then I was asked if I would become a member of the trustees, and I said yes, I would like that, because I really think that education makes everybody as powerful as they can be. The trustees are the owner of this campus and everything in it. We are answerable to the people of Tuscarawas County. And we are a sovereign institution as a board of trustees. And many of the presidents who came through Kent State did not understand that we were different, because we're the only one in the state.
When I started here as a student, I enrolled having spent first semester out of town at a larger university, and I came here really because of the close-knit community that I knew that I would experience here.
In 1980, Dean Shade called me and he said, "Can you come and help us?" Because one of the employees had a son who was diagnosed with cancer, and it was registration time, and he said, "I need somebody I don't have to train right now." And so I came back to help with that fall registration, and during that time, a person who was working part-time in graphics and design left to take a full-time job, and Dean Shade asked, would I be interested? And I was, and I loved that work, and that's what I retired from in the year 2000. So a total of 33 years, and every year was great. Every year something new. I'm one blessed woman to have had all of this in my life.
I started at Kent Tusk right after I graduated from high school in 1986. I did my first 2 years at Kent Tusk, and I obtained my associate's degree in general studies there, and then later went on to the Kent main campus, where I got my bachelor's in business administration degree with a major in accounting.
I attended the Kent State Tuscarawas campus beginning in the fall of 1989, and I came here directly out of high school, and I don't even remember having a whole lot of thought really in the matter as far as why I came here. My sisters, they're all older than me, all attended the Kent Tuscarawas campus, and that's just where I knew I was going to go after high school, and that was sort of the plan in our household, that you would go to the Kent State Tuscarawas campus for 2 years and then proceed on to Kent State University at Kent after that. It was just expected in our household.
My favorite professor was Agnes Weigert. She taught a business class. I think it was a business calculus class. And she was just very motivational and instrumental to me as far as advising me as to really ultimately what a major I decided to go into.
Somewhere near the end of my first year, it occurred to me that I wanted to continue on. I liked college much more than I thought that I would. I was not a great high school student, and I didn't dislike it. I just didn't have a real passion for it yet. And when I came to the Kent State Tuscarawas campus, I knew it was something that I really liked. I enjoyed the difference between higher education and high school, and I some point in time decided it became my goal to go to law school. I remember, while there was very little time between my class that ended at noon and being in class by 1 o'clock, but over the noon hour, there was organized basketball and football when I was here. And while the football didn't seem to take off quite as well, the basketball was very competitive and very fun. That was my most fun time, I think, at the campus.
Had a good experience as an undergrad, and then later went someplace else and earned my master's degree, and eventually ended up here in 1994 in January to teach as an adjunct. And I worked with, and some people may remember the name, Dr. Alice Nuttall. And I had a little consulting business of my own, and did the two, and did some other things, wrote for a trade magazine, and then in 2001, Dr. Nuttall was retired, and I ended up applying for and being offered the position of assistant professor for the business management and BMRT, business management and related technology. However, we've thrown the related out and just call it business management technology.
I started at Kent State in 1996. I started at East Liverpool, assistant professor. I went 6 years there, got tenure promoted, and moved over to the Tuscarawas campus. That would be 2002. The rumor was it was in the middle of a cornfield that Tuscarawas was, so I actually I lived in Salem. I drove over here, and lo and behold, it was in the middle of a cornfield, just like they said. So that was my first impression. I had heard positive things about the campus. There was a lot of excitement. There were a lot of people looking forward to the building, and we were looking forward to moving in. It was, labs were okay. I mean, they were functioning labs. I actually arrived here in June and started teaching. I moved into Dover on a Friday, and I taught here on Monday.
I started, as I said, as a student in 1968, was working 2 part-time jobs. One of those jobs was at United Parcel Service. And so when the school thing really didn't pan out for me too well, I opted for United Parcel Service and had a career there of 30 years. And then became the campus minister here through an organization out of Pittsburgh called the Coalition for Christian Outreach. They plugged me into the campus here. I met with Agnes Weigert, the assistant dean, and I think Jim Kinsey, who was a student council advisor at that time. And we became a club on campus, the Salt and Light Club, and my office literally was in the student union. That's where I hung out, and that's where I met all the students.
Denny Trimmer was instrumental in helping form a community around my academics. If I wouldn't have found a faith community to plug into, I many times don't know if I would have graduated, if I would have had the direction and motivation that just came from someone being there and caring for me in such a deliberate way every day.
He and my husband worked together at UPS. Okay, so we were, you know, when guys got together, when families got together, we were together. But when Denny retired from UPS, in fact, yeah, I think it was when he retired, he had wanted to have a faith-based group on campus. Well, we had one, but it kind of had gone by the wayside. And he picked it up and he took it to a high level with a lot of students involved in that.
So I came to Kent Tusk in the fall of 2004. And from my memory, I was the first applied communication studies major at Kent State Tuscarawas. And I remember the direction that my professor at the time had given me. She said, you know, it seems like you have some skills. It seems like you can talk to people. It seems like you have an ability to get messages to people. So I was able to take that encouragement out into my regular work. I got a job in local radio and TV. I worked for Channel 2 for a while, had a camera on my shoulder. Was a sports correspondent for WJER for a while in college. And I did a lot of traveling covering high school sports around the county. And it's all really because of Kent State Tuscarawas and that professor that pushed me to see that there was actually more out there, to concentrate on my studies, but to also concentrate on my vocation and how those things went together.
As part of being on campus all day long and getting to know so many students and knowing them very well, the staff recognized that I connected with them pretty well. So with that, they asked me to be in charge of the Intramural Sports and also the Student Council Advisor, which led to many different and I think fun activities. We did a lot of things on campus. As far as Intramural Sports, we had an amazing dodgeball team that was just off the charts. They actually traveled around the nation. They were very, very good. When we went to the gym to play dodgeball, it was loud and it was energetic, and people would just come down just to check it out and see what all was going on. We played basketball with that, volleyball. As far as Student Council Advisor, we tried to bring some fun stuff to campus, karaoke contest, hot dog eating contest, a little bit of everything. We had punt, pass, kick contest, artwork. The students could display their artwork. So it was a variety of things to do to kind of give them different looks here on campus, the different things to do, different things to plug into.
Student Activities Council, I was the president there for a year, and we did lots of really fun things. Hot dog eating competitions, punt, pass, and kick competitions, a dodgeball. we did lots of dodgeball, but we were also able to form a really tight-knit community of just us students trying to come together and make our way through more or less as a family. You know, a lot of us coming from all different backgrounds, and we were able to come together to partake of these different activities, whether we were just hanging out in the student union, whether we were working with other clubs for Halloween parties, dances, things like that. It was really fun.
I don't know, it was such I almost describe it as a little community that God knitted together every year in that corner of that student union where people would just come in between class or lunchtime or whatever and just chill out and hang out. And the relationships just began to spin out of there like it was unbelievable. The relationships built. A lot of the people that were connected to those groups are married and have children now of their own. So it was a very, very cool thing to see. And once again, I'm just amazed that I was a part of that, and I thank God for that.
One mark that is so evident in my life thus far is service. And this is a heart that was formed right here in Tuscarawas County and so much here at Kent State Tuscarawas. I met a real family here with the students and the faculty around, and we had a heart to get out into the community. So with my education, I had finally graduated in 2010. I took that initiative for service that I learned here at Kent State Tuscarawas to join the Army. Served 2 tours in Afghanistan. I had the opportunity to be a corrections officer here in Tuscarawas County for a while. And I'm in the process of founding a nonprofit organization here in Tuscarawas County called the Good Neighbor Project. And so what we want to do is lead college students and community members in the service of others. We want to do things like mow lawns, rake leaves, and clear snow for people that can't.
I would say Kent State Tuscarawas has a lot to do with the success in my career. I started here as a post-secondary student, and I was able to make a lot of connections, not only here on the campus, but in making friends with classmates and internships and different things like that. So not only gaining that experience on one-to-one relationships, but also with my career path in the classes that I took. They were very helpful in not only communications, but general studies, preparing me for what was to come in the workplace.
Getting to do all those presentations with Dr. Kroom was always really fun and interesting. We got to do a flash song in the student union, which was really fun and hilarious. We had people that had no idea we were going to come in there and start singing and playing songs. We were playing a Beatles song, and a lot of people were eating lunch, and they began to sing with us, "All You Need Is Love." That was pretty fun.
So I had the good fortune of graduating from this university with an associate in business management technology May of 2014. I'd have to say my claim to fame is probably the fact that I began that 2-year degree here January actually of 1980, graduating May of 2014. So over a span of 34 years I completed a 2-year degree. There was a whole lot of life that happened in the middle of that degree, and all those life experiences always lend to what we take out of an education.
I first came to the campus in 2014 as a result of a national search. The thing that really won me over about the campus were the people employed at the campus. So I was really excited also about the unique relationship of the campus within the Kent system and really within the state of Ohio. So we're proudly Kent State, but we're also proudly Tuscarawas because of that unique situation where we're locally owned by the community. And because of that, I think the community has a special place for the campus, and we have a special obligation with the community to give back.
I would say some of my best memories on campus are working at the Performing Arts Center and getting ready for large events, setting up for weddings. It was exciting sometimes to know that there were some famous people hanging out in the Performing Arts Center. I didn't really get to meet them, but it was just cool to be there and be part of that experience. And I thought, working there, I really appreciated what the Performing Arts Center has brought to Tuscarawas County in terms of the culture and the opportunity for people to see shows here that they otherwise may never see.
Well, we've had a lot of fun here. So it's been a great campus to work at. As far as the most memorable, I think the Distinguished Speaker Series for me, just because my kids got to come over and see some really great speakers. And particularly I remember the kids meeting George Stephanopoulos. That was kind of neat. And then Bill Clinton popped in with John Glenn, which we came over for that. And my kids got to actually see him and see John Glenn. And to me, that was a very positive experience for the kids all those years. Probably the best move I made in my career was moving from East Liverpool over here. It was just better for my family, better for the kids. I think the kids got a really great education. All three of them started off their senior year doing the College Credit Plus. So they had a little bit of Kent experience and then moved up to Kent Portage for the rest of their education.
It is a hub of activity here on campus, and to take a daily walkthrough and talk to some of the students, to understand what their concerns are, to understand what makes them happy, to understand what their financial situation is, and to also hear what their aspirations and dreams are. Those are really some of the highlights for me.
This campus is not only a light to the community, but to this part of Ohio. And the way we're positioned in this part of Ohio, whether it be with our performing arts, whether it now be with our sports programs, our top-notch science and technology, or traditional education programs. Kent Tusk is a place people want to be. It's not many people's second choice.
You're going to get the same experience here that you would at any other really small liberal college. I think it's actually better here because the professors are in the labs with the students. Speaking from the science perspective, I get to spend time with the students in the lab, and that's a very positive experience.
I didn't know whether, I had to muster to make it through college or whatever. And, I went down there and everyone cooperated to make it a positive experience. And the professors, challenged us, and yet at the same time they were good to us. They nurtured us along. The administration was wonderful.
It empowers us to step out and do our very best each and every day, because every instructor, every employee here at the university, every professor, all of administration, everyone is working so hard each day to empower success in every element of the campus.
There have been students that have an appointment with me and they come into the office and I welcome them in, and I can tell they're so unsure and a little on the nervous side. Well, pretty quickly they feel comfortable with me. Most people do. What I have had the privilege of doing, and I'll use this word, I have had the privilege of watching them grow and blossom, actually blossom, men and women, blossom. And as I'm sitting here talking, I can remember the names, the faces, and how. And I've talked to other professors, instructors, and they have the same experiences. It's just a joy to watch them grow and mature. And a lot of talented people have walked into this building, and a lot have walked out, even more talented and with a different perspective. And
the success of this campus has been people who have come here, loved it, and wanted to get involved beyond just even people who came to attend classes, and community involvement. People who saw the need and stepped up to the plate and continue to love it, and we continue to have people who want to see it go beyond where it is now.
I think when they understand what is here and the opportunities, that this is not like the 13th grade as it was considered way back at the beginning. This is actually a very, very strong college.
Now none of my students have ever even heard the word branch.
We would have never imagined that this facility would be here today. It is a feather in the cap of the community. You've got the facility we're in here today. One of the things that really impressed me about this campus is the Performing Arts Center. It is absolutely a tribute to the arts. It's a state-of-the-art facility bringing in entertainment from world-class entertainment.
I'm really excited about our Gateway Entrance project right now. So seeing that move forward is something that during the first 3 years of my administration I was really pushing for. And now that we've seen dirt move, base of the bridge driven, we're really excited about that.
About a year or so ago, we had a meeting down the other end of the building, a faculty meeting, and I walked by the Union patio off to the left, and across the street is an open field, and you can see the incubator there, the SBDC and the incubator, and he was just standing there. And I know what he was doing. And I walked up next to him and I said, Dean Bilski, what do you see? And he did not tell me that he saw a field and a deer over there in the field. He started to share with me what he saw in the future. And I'm not going to share those things with you because I don't remember all that what he said, but I'm sure that this documentary will cover part of where he's going to take us. But he saw what this university can be someday. And on the way in this morning, part of his vision is being realized with all of the construction going on around the building.
I would like to see us have 15 to 17 baccalaureate programs and maybe even a few more associate programs. I'd like to offer the capability or the ability for residential housing on campus. So part of that Gateway Entrance project is not just to alleviate traffic at the Performing Arts Center in the evenings, it's to look to the future and to be able to say, well, we can offer a residential experience for certain students, maybe have a student center, maybe have a residential village feel to our campus, all encompassed with a trail project that we're doing as well. So academically, I'd like to see more baccalaureate programs. From a student experience standpoint, more residential capacity or capability, and more activities. Right now we have a band and a choir that we're trying to build, and we have a sports program that's competing in some sports on a national level. So maybe winning a national championship in something wouldn't be bad either.
I think Kent State Tusk is going to continue growing and developing. When I think of Kent State Tuscarawas, the one word that comes to mind is opportunity.
Growing. I think Kent State Tuscarawas is growing.
Excellence.
Personable.
Life-changing.
An opportunity.
Enthusiasm.
Astounding.
I would say it's a treasure.
Opportunities.
Dynamic.
It was just fun.
Friendly.
Great. Great.
Family.
One word, I don't know, I can't really describe it in one word. It's just, if you're a part of it, you love it.
Love.